did I did a continuing ed this week, and it was on sugar, which is kind of one of my favorite subjects anyway. But and a lot of the things I've said to you, and I'll say tonight, you'll probably hear before, but it really was very eye opening, as to how bad the situation was. And then I've had this real thing with I treat a lot of kids and teenagers with ADHD. And in the last week or so, I mean, the diets and the amount of sugar in their diets and what it does is really, it just keeps coming to light. And so I wanted to go over some things from this because I really do. Knowledge is not power, action is power. But the more knowledge we have, the more likely we are to act. And, when I was doing this the other day, 74% of packaged foods that are sold in the supermarket have added sugar. And I'm curious if any of you know what the limits are on sugar consumption for women and sugar consumption for men and sugar consumption for children each day. And I'll give you a hint, it's in teaspoons. But does anybody want to guess what those are?
Teaspoons. So consumption per year?
Per day.
Oh, per day. I don't know.
6 teaspoons for women, 9 teaspoons for men, and 3 to 6 teaspoons for children. And I'm going to tell you that is a very small amount.
Right. I was about to say that's nothing.
How many teaspoons would you guess are in a Coca-Cola, 12-ounce serving?
Probably 30.
It's actually 11 teaspoons, which is 46.2 grams. So if you have one soft drink, you have beat that. The leading brand of yogurt has 7 teaspoons of sugar in it. A breakfast bar made with real fruit, sounds good, doesn't it?
Yes.
Has 15 grams of sugar. A single cup of bran cereal with raisins, and we've always been told Raisin Bran was good for us. It has 20 grams of sugar per serving. And, so women can only have 25 grams of sugar per day. So you've blown the wad.
So we need to be on like an IV then only.
Well, no, it means that again, I'm big about keeping you away from the processed foods. And I'm really trying to save your wallet too, because I'm telling you, all those processed foods are expensive. So Americans consume 57 pounds of the of sugar you consume each year. Is what's added into the foods that you're buying. And so it's really about making healthy choices. But one of the people said to me the other day was that, the problem is, Kimball, that they don't understand, how many things. And I know that you, Pam, said that you didn't realize all that was added there. So I'm going to talk to you about some different types of sugar sweeteners, and then I'm going to go over a list of 61 names. Because here's what happened: is a few years ago, the government decided that they had to put on the label what was in the food, and you had to put it in order of the amounts. So sugar used to just be sugar until they put it that way, and then they have given it many different names. In fact, I've even heard that there's a list that has 100 different names, but that is to confuse you. So when you're looking at sugar science, high fructose corn syrup is really the worst, and it is 42 or 55% fructose, but it could contain as much as 90% fructose. And corn syrup is broken down by the body in a different way than sugar, and it's worse than sugar. It causes a fatty liver more, and it is very addictive. Eating and drinking things with high fructose corn syrup actually makes you hungrier much more than sugar. Sucrose is another name for table sugar, and we will talk that again. And, but sucrose sounds better than sugar. It sounds like some kind of scientific something that sweetens it, but it's not really sugar. But the truth is, it is. Now, fructose is the sugar that comes from fruits. And I've told you before that drinking fruit juice is no bueno, all bad, because it's nothing but the sugary part. When you eat an apple or you eat an orange, you're only going to get so much sugar because there's a lot of fiber and stuff there. But when they pull the fructose out, they're basically using the juice to sweeten things, then you get a much higher level. So these are the things, and so there's a lot of sugar that is hidden. There's 61, this is what's most common, the 61 names for sugar. There's agave nectar, there's Barbados sugar, there's barley malt syrup, beet sugar, brown sugar, buttered syrup, cane juice crystals, cane sugar, caramel, carob syrup, castor sugar, coconut palm sugar, coconut sugar, confectionery sugar, corn sweetener, corn syrup solids, date sugar, dehydrated cane juice, demera sugar, dextrin, dextrose, evaporated cane juice, free-flowing brown sugar, fructose, fruit juice concentrate, glucose solids, golden sugar, golden syrup, grape sugar, HFCS, which is high fructose corn syrup, honey, icing sugar, invert sugar, malt syrup, maltodextrin, maltol, maltose, mannose, maple syrup, molasses, muscovado, palm sugar, panache, powdered sugar, raw sugar, refiner's syrup, rice syrup, saccharose, sorghum syrup, sucrose, sugar granulated, sweet sorghum, syrup, treacle, turbinado sugar, and yellow sugar. So what do all of those have in common? They are all high glycemic index. They're all sugar. They all raise your blood sugar. They all give you those negative impacts. But do you see how complicated it is, even when you're reading the labels, to know what is there? And that's exactly why it's done that way, so that you don't have really a clue how much sugar that you are taking in. So tonight I wanted to focus a little bit on the negative impact of sugar. And of course, all of our organs are very, very important. I tend to think our brain, though, may be the most important one. I know for me that when my brain is gone, I hope that the dear Lord is taking me home, because I don't want to live if I don't have a brain. And the brain, excess sugar impairs both cognitive function and self-control. The more sugar you take in, it really affects your brain a lot like alcohol and drugs. As you're eating it, it affects your brain and helps you lose control, so that you tend to overeat more. And I've talked about this before, in that we see a lot of the things that go on are the same kind of things that go on when you are addicted to substances. And the one I talk about the most is cocaine, because it's more like that. Research in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that people who eating high sugar diets listed greater brain activity in the regions involving eating behavior, reward, and craving. And one of the things I'm very clear about is, if I do a month with nothing that has any kind of sweetener in it, I find myself not really wanting anything else. I mean, it's like, and it's that way with an addiction. When you get away from the drug, you tend to stop craving it. One study that was published in the PLOS found that sugar was more addictive than cocaine. And it was, of course, it was performed on animals, because I think they would tend to not be so happy about us doing that in human beings. But it found that the intense sweetness can surpass the cocaine reward even in drug sensitized and addicted individuals. Now, coming out of working in the area of addictions early on in my career, it created more pleasure than cocaine to a cocaine addict. I'd never seen that before. I mean, I'd always said it was similar, but to think that it was more, that was pretty big. The other thing that they have found is that excess sugar um, is harmful and results in slow cognitive function and deficits in memory and attention. And again, when I'm working with kids, this happened last week. New kid came in. Okay, what's he eating? Well, he had a Pop-Tart on Monday before he went to school. Tuesday, he had French toast sticks. Wednesday, he didn't have anything. To be honest with you, I was more pleased with the not anything than I was the other. Because again, if this kid is starting out with all of this sugar, what are we doing? We are slowing it down. And sugar consumption, again, causes inflammation in the brain. And what they found in 2016, again, it's a rat study. They don't like you doing this on humans, was the markers were present in the hippocampus of rats fed a high sugar diet, but not in those who were fed the standard diet. And again, I'm telling you, my father is the poster child for what you can do to break down your brain and, clog up your arteries if you have a high sugar diet. The good news is, however, that the inflammatory damage from sugar may not be permanent, and that is also in the ages. And what they have found, that memory damage caused by sugar consumption can be reversed if you follow a low sugar, low glycemic diet. And the other piece of that, in another study that was found, is that supplementing with omega-3 fatty acids and curcumin improve the working memory. So, and my father is on a supplement that has quite a bit of curcumin in it, and he is also taking the omega-3s. So those are some things that are helpful. The other thing is, if we look at our youth, and I mean adults too, since the pandemic, depression is off the chain. One of the largest studies that was done had 23,245 individuals enrolled in it. And they found that higher rates of sugar consumption was associated with a greater incidence of depression. And that people with the highest level of sugar consumption were 23% more likely to be diagnosed with a mental disorder than those with low sugar intakes. And I'm not going to ask for any hymns because I'm not asking for people to tell me about this. But I want you to think about this. If you've ever seen a doctor about anxiety or depression, how many of you ever had the question asked about what are you eating? Because I will tell you, in my practice, when I ask people who are depressed or anxious about their diet, they look at me like they have gone to the wrong person because I can't possibly have any clue about what's going on. And that is a real problem. It's something that needs to be looked at. Again, we've gone over this before. The studies of the long-term diabetics show progressive brain damage leading to deficits in learning, memory, motor speed, and other cognitive function. Exposure to high glucose levels diminishes mental capacity as higher A1Cs are associated with greater brain shrinkage. And brain shrinkage is what every older person is trying to avoid. Even in those without diabetes who have higher sugar consumption, they have lower scores on cognitive function tests. And they are more likely, of course, to have hypoglycemia, hypertension, insulin resistance, and elevated blood sugars. Research has shown that a diet high in added sugar reduces the production of brain-derived neurotropic factor. It's a brain chemical that is essential for memory. And there's actually a journal that is doing a lot of publishing on dementia and Alzheimer's with this, and that journal is the Diabetologia journal. So there's a lot of stuff out here, and again, we get to this piece about why sugar is so very, very dangerous. Now, I don't think doctors spend nearly enough time talking about sugar and the heart, because they're all, although I have a in fact, maybe what we ought to do is I need to find a date this week. So when I did this continuing ed, I discovered a couple of films on Amazon, documentaries. One of them is called Fat, and that's the first one, and the second one is called Fat 2. And it's fabulous. The guy who did it is a guy who used, well, he still is. He's a trainer for all kinds of stars and stuff. He got into it back in the 70s and the 80s. And he really put this together masterfully. But see, the thought is, if you eat fat, you're going to have heart disease. If you eat fat, you're going to have high blood pressure. They're always saying, eat the lean meats. And he lays out in this documentary that there was one doctor that brought all of this to the table, and he just kept saying it over and over. Sounds a lot like Trump to me, but I'm just saying. And everybody said, oh, yeah, that's how it is. And so, but what has been found is really that's not true. Interestingly enough, one of the guys that you meet on here is a guy who back in the 50s lived in Alaska, where they eat whale blubber. Blubber's fat, about 6 months of the year, and then they eat fish the other 6. And he went there and he lived, and while he was doing that, all of his numbers got better. And he was basically eating almost no carbohydrate. He was eating all these fatty meats. So when we think about this, and I keep talking, to different doctors that really study this, and they're all saying the same thing. The sugar is way worse. And the negative effects of sugar, obesity, okay, we know that. But the stuff with the heart, and interestingly enough, you learn in this thing, fat, that the more foods that you eat that create cholesterol, the less cholesterol your body actually makes. That if you starve yourself of that can make those markers go up. But the big thing about sugar is that it causes inflammation throughout the body. When you get inflammation inside the arteries, then that is a place where you are likely to get a blockage. I've told the story before, but I'll say it again. My dad, January 2021, the doctor told me he's never had high cholesterol. He's never had high blood pressure. Your father does not have a blockage. And I said, I am 99% sure my father's got a blockage. Every time he walks across the room, he gets short of breath. I said, he doesn't have anything wrong with his lungs, and you can't show me anything else. He says, well, he can. I said, well, another thing is he's gained 40 pounds in 6 months from eating 4 desserts a day when he was locked down. Well, he gained the weight. If he loses the weight, it'll get better. It's not that bad. Well, that is a really big problem. And, that's what they're finding. Sugar can block up your arteries much quicker than all of those other things. And remember, a man should not be getting but 9 teaspoons in a day and a woman 6. So figuring out how you're going to cut back. And my dad, he thinks I'm the meanest person in the world because I will not let him drink an 8 to 16 ounce glass of orange juice every day. But that, I don't even know how many tablespoons of sugar. That's probably more sugar than is in a Coca-Cola. But you've got to look at these things if you're really looking at your heart health. And the other thing is, if you're going to substitute other sweeteners because you just don't, I like things that are bitter, so I'm okay. But I know some people don't like that bittery. But you've got to look and you've got to see what the glycemic index is on those. You know, I tell you all the time, the little packs of yellow and the little packs of blue are poison. Both of them kill blood brain cells. Both of them actually have high glycemic indexes. So even though they don't have any calories, they make your body shoot out insulin. So they're going to have the wrong effect. If you've got to have sweetener, stevia and monk fruit or moringa are 3 really good options. You can use tiny amounts of honey and tiny amounts of, and I'm talking tiny amounts of maple syrup, because they actually will raise your blood sugar slower than will actual sugar. So we're going to do some more with this next week, but I wanted to look at the heart and brain tonight and also just give you more education on what's going on with sugar and why it's so important. And if you're still doing packaged foods, that you take a look, because they put sugar in just about everything. They put sugar in spaghetti sauce. They put sugar in frozen vegetables. They put sugar in most salad dressings. But remember, you need to, and I'll put a copy of these different names for sugar. In fact, I'll probably try to find that 100 list. And I'll put a copy of that in the WhatsApp so that you guys can see it. Because you want to be looking at that when you are purchasing. So any questions?
No, you just bring the reality to us.
It is a cold, hard truth, but you know, the truth is when you start getting away from this, and it's funny, once your eyes are opened up, when I look at somebody and I see a very thick neck that is much bigger than what I would expect for the rest of the weight they're carrying, that is inflammation. And and I'm almost positive you don't have it, Pam. I see you looking, you don't have it. But when I see that, I'm almost sure that this is someone who's eating you don't have it either.
Yeah.
This
Good
is
to know
someone,
only 1 second.
and you know,
Good to know I want the only 1 second.
yeah,
I know that's right.
I look back at when before I was aware of all of these things and I changed my diet. And there was a time where I had this really thick neck. In fact, I remember my youngest son coming here to visit, and he said, "Mom, you just don't look like yourself." And I can't remember what it was. It was a food that was a prepared food I was eating. When I cut that out, it just shrank right up.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And you think about, if this was like that, then what's going on in your arteries? So anyway, knowledge will give you the information and your actions will give you the power. So
Oh my.
I will see you next week, and I'm going to start looking. Send me some dates on the WhatsApp if there's some dates that would be good for you all. And I want us to get together. I'm dying for you all to see this fat. I bought it. It's
Okay.
You can buy it, but I've got it, and we can watch it. And I think and I would love to do some cooking, because I've actually come up with some great recipes for the Memorial Day weekend that are fun, that don't have sugar. So I'm going to get them for you.
All right. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.